recording now, so it's I always start with the same thing. Don't put your finger up your nose, don't swear.
I'll try not to.
Good.
I've got to remember there's people watching now, haven't I, rather than being on my own in my office.
Yeah. Well, good morning, Richard, and thank you for joining us. Thanks for giving your time up to tell us your story, really. So it's for anybody who doesn't know who you are, give us your potted history.
No worries. And thanks for having me, Bob. Really appreciate it. It's nice to speak to someone, actually. So,
just rather than being sat in
rather than talking to my laptop in my office.
Yeah.
So thanks for having me along this morning. Yeah, I mean, it all started for me about 16 years ago, actually, my journey as training to be an ADI. I'm quite lucky. I grew up in a lovely part of the world, Brecon in mid Wales, in the middle of the Brecon Beacons, which I was quite privileged to do. Really, such a nice place. When you're growing up, though, it's when you're a child, stroke teenager, it can be a little bit boring.
Yeah.
You know, because there's plenty to do, but when you sort of get a little bit older, you wanna have a bit of independence, don't you? But
well, chase the bright lights as well, don't you? You know, it's just this place is boring.
Exactly. Yeah, constantly nagging my parents for lifts, etc., and getting up to no good on my push bike, and then eventually I had little 50cc moped.
As you do.
Broke Fizzy 50, one of those things years ago. Show my age now.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't really interested in school education, if I'm honest. I was more interested in playing football. I love sport, so football. Wasn't a massive fan of rugby, if I'm honest, which is strange coming from Wales.
Is that allowed as a Welshman? Is that allowed?
This is it. See, this is very controversial. My theory was I'm quite small, not big enough, so quite quick. So I can run away from the big guys, but I wasn't a big fan of getting flattened. So
yeah. Seems reasonable.
Yeah. I decided rugby wasn't. I had a few games of rugby, got absolutely flattened in it, and I thought, well, this isn't for me really. I'll stick to football, and that was my little pleasure in life when I was a bit younger, and I could run around a bit more then. So yeah, got bored of school quite quick. It's different back in those days. You weren't really pushed if you weren't interested. They were sort of right.
Be quiet. Yeah.
Yeah, they were just happy for you to be quiet at the back of the class or not turn up at all, really. back in those days, they didn't really care. So it quite suited me. So I decided quite early on in life that if you wanted anything, you'd have to go out and earn it. So I decided I was going to go out into the big wide world and earn some money. So got myself a few part-time jobs through school. A little bit different back then again. I think my first part-time job, I was about 12, something like that. Just working in a kitchen somewhere, peeling potatoes, pot washing, all those joyful things. But I had a bit of money to spend on the weekends, which was nice, and I quite like that experience. So moved on, left school quite early, left school just after I did my GCSE, so didn't do amazing in those, if I'm totally honest, because I wasn't really interested. So my goal really was to go out there and earn some money. And I quickly realized, because I was in a rural area, that you couldn't really get anywhere unless you could travel.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned, I had my push bike, a mountain bike, and then I had like a racing bike, but great in the summer, not so great in the winter.
No.
So I got fed up of getting soaked all the time. And then as soon as I could, I wanted to learn to drive. I was quite lucky to grow up in a rural part of Brecon and lived quite close to a farm growing up for the last sort of 3-4 years before I was 17. So I could pretty much drive, just not legally. I could drive off-road, should we say. As I said, motorbike experience, etc. So it was just a case of hoping I could just get in the car and get my license, really, because we're talking back in the day where there weren't a theory test.
No, nothing even remotely like. It's just The test was very different then.
Oh, crazy days. Yeah, literally, you would turn up to your test. And I remember back those days, if you could drive a bit, your instructor would sort of let you get on with it, really, more than anything. And my personal experience of driving instructor was funny because I kind of knew him. He was quite local because it's a village I lived in, and everyone knows everyone in the village.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
It was one of those, really. And he turned up on my first lesson. I was really excited. I think I paid £25 for a block of 5 lessons.
Right.
So we're talking sort of 1994, something like that.
Right.
So he turned up at the time in a brand new Ford Fiesta. It was a G-Reg, old G-Reg, red one. I remember it really well. 4 gears. And wow, this is the business. I can't wait to drive this, And I said I had a bit of experience. He picked me up from the house and put me straight in the driver's seat. There wasn't even any questions. It was just, can you drive a bit? Yeah, sure, I can drive a bit. Straight in the driver's seat, and yeah, that was it. Off to go, straight on the main roads. Yes, it was a bit quieter back then, and it was a rural area as well, so it wasn't so bad. But just thinking back on it, it's crazy. If I was in issues, I certainly wouldn't have let
we didn't
me do that.
risk management then.
No, it was nothing discussed at all. It was just, right, can you drive? Yes, no, jump in the driver's seat, off you go. And I'll never forget my first lesson. It was 2 hours. So we drove down to a local village, which was about 3 miles away, and got there. It didn't go too badly, I thought, so that was all right. He didn't scream at me or anything like that. So we thought, right, this is going okay. He said, right, we're going to practice some parking now. So I thought, okay, this sounds like a good challenge. See these little car parking spaces outside the shop? I want you to park there. Just drive straight in there. So just drove in anyhow over the line a little bit, but so don't worry about that. That's absolutely fine. And he got out.
To do some shopping, yeah.
I said, okay. Yeah, and he literally just went into the shop. I thought, all right, okay, sat there. 5 minutes went by, 10 minutes. Comes out the shop, newspaper under arm, bag of spuds like this. Chucks him in the back, pops his newspaper on the dashboard. Right, off we go then, reverse out. Off we went, down the road again. Didn't say a lot at all, really. Do you know the area, he said. I said, yeah, pretty much, grew up around here. Oh, you don't need me to tell you where to go then. Just head down to the next village. So it's carried on down to the next village. We're going to pull into this petrol station now. Okay, just pull in there, just pull up beside the fuel pump. He gets out, starts doing his fuel, goes to the cafe, grabs a cup of tea, comes back out. And this was an ongoing thing. And that was my driving lessons. And it was crazy. And there was one point, I had about six hours altogether, something like that. And I remember the last lesson, just before my test, he picked up the local newspaper. He always had it on the dashboard like that. And you wouldn't think about doing that sort of thing these days, but yeah, newspaper on the dashboard, kept my coffee by ear, he'd be sipping away. He even got the newspaper out, started to have a little look when I was driving. I was just like, couldn't believe this, but that's what it was like back then.
Yeah.
It
still happens now occasionally, but thankfully it is only occasionally. So was it that experience that drew you to wanting to be a driving instructor because it was so good or so bad, or?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely counted towards it. That's for sure. I mean, I didn't know any different back then, if I'm honest. I just thought, well, this is the norm, and it wasn't. I don't look back on it as a bad experience because I learned a lot from it.
But the guy that taught me used to batter me if I made a mistake. I mean, really properly batter me. But it didn't matter to me because he was doing the same to my mates. So I didn't feel singled out. It would just seem that was just the norm. He got things wrong, he punched you. The guy was a psychopath. But he was the ADI in the village, so everybody went to him. That was it.
Yeah, same experience as me. I was lucky though. He was more chilled out. He was more interested in getting his shopping done, getting his newspaper, and getting home as quickly as he could, which was fine. Suited me. I was one of the earliest ones to do my test in my year, so I was like an oldest one in my year in school. So in fact, I think I was the first one to pass, because I ended up going to college after school and finished off doing my driving and passed my test first couple of months of college. And I was chuffed to bits. I bought myself Mini Cooper Classic, an old one, red. Love red. Don't know why.
I bet you wish you had it now. You see how much they're going for now?
I know, crazy. It was all done out really nice. Again, we're talking sort of 1994 now, something like that. It was around about that time. They were all the rage then, wasn't they? And, I fell in love with that car. It had like red bucket seats. It had a cherry bomb exhaust, K&N air filter. Oh, it was my baby.
Everybody should own a Mini at some point in their driving career. The old Mini.
100%. Yeah. You can't get better than the old Mini. The new ones just don't cut the mustard for me. You look at the old ones, you think, yeah, that's a car. So yeah, no, it was great. I remember passing my test. I played a bit of a trick on my mom. Mom was a bit of a stress head. She was always sort of a bit panicky about me getting my license, as some parents are. Don't want you driving away. Because I had that car as well, she was always nagging me, saying, make sure you don't drive fast and all this sort of thing.
Okay, Mom. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, sure, Mom. Yeah. Thanks. So yeah, I remember passing my test. I somehow kept it from her, because back then, if I remember rightly, back then when you booked your test, they sent you a postcard and it came through the letterbox. Can you remember that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I remember checking the mail every single day until this postcard came through, and I managed to get it without my mom seeing it. So I kept it a bit of a secret. And I thought I'd surprise her on the day I passed my test. She ran the local post office. So I passed my test. It was about midday, something like that. And got my car insured and everything like that. Because back then you could get your own car insured at 17. I'm sure I paid around about £400 maximum. It was like fully comp. So we're talking, sorted it all out myself because I've been working. And then took the L plates off. First drive. Thought, yeah, I'm the business. Yeah, window down. Kept to the speed limit, obviously.
Oh, of course. Yeah, of course.
And then turned up outside Mom's post office. Sunglasses on. Turned up outside Mom's post office, revved the car a bit. She come running out, screaming at me, "What are you doing, bro? Where's your L plates?" Blah, 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 blah. And I quickly showed her my pass certificate. And she was like, "Oh, okay, well done." So I was a bit of a practical joker when I was younger. Loved a prank or two. She loves me for it now. But yeah, that was that really. So got my independence, got my car, off out in the big wide world. Wanted to earn some money. So yeah, I was always like cars. I was quite interested in cars when I was young.
Well, the thing was, once you got your license, it offered you more opportunities then. I mean, I grew up in a village, again, once you got the license, well, suddenly the big lights of the city, Newcastle, became within my reach. So I could get a job there, which paid me more money than the job I already had. So it's, and I think back that I became interested in becoming an instructor because my instructor was so bad. I'm sure that plays into it. And over the years, I've sort of conducted straw polls with people, and people who become instructors seem to either have a really good instructor or a very poor one. They don't seem to be the people who had ordinary instructors. I don't know, maybe I've just made that up.
No, you're right. No, it is. Yeah. No,
so
I think
16 years ago you qualified. That's
I know. Time flies when you're having fun, eh? It's crazy, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
so what got you to driving instruction?
Sorry, say that again.
What made you become a driving instructor? What drew you to the industry?
Yeah, so fast forward a few years down the line, I'd done various jobs. As I mentioned before, I went to college. Again, I sort of only went to college because my friends were going. If I'm honest, I wasn't that interested in it. Again, they had a good football team, so that sort of drew me to where I wanted to play football. And
that'll do. Where do I sign?
Exactly, typical lad. But yeah, it gave me a few opportunities to get a few jobs, earn some money. Mostly dead end, if I'm honest. There wasn't a lot of work opportunities in a rural town in mid Wales. So, like yourself, wanted to go and discover the big wide world. So, decided I was going to go to university. and work around it. A bit more of a mature student, so I was around about 20 then, and I went to live in the big city of Cardiff.
All right.
Yeah, that was an experience and a half coming from the country bumpkin.
Happening sort of place.
Yeah, I never forget it. You know, I had this great idea. There's a few of us. There's a few friends I had. We decided we were going to move down there, and we were going to share a house. It's about four or five of us, all lads, young lads. So you can imagine it, can't you? You know,
bears with furniture.
That's it. Party central. So we went down there, and I'll never forget trying to find my way around Cardiff because I didn't have a clue. I'd never really been to Cardiff apart from on a bus and maybe to the odd nightclub now and again, but never driven around there or anything. So didn't really think about it. I'm talking the days before a sat nav or anything here.
Yeah.
So you literally have to sort of read a map. Those little red books, those street maps. Remember those?
Oh yeah, God, yeah.
Them. So I bought myself one of those, studied it. Well, thought I'd studied it, but obviously I hadn't. When I got down there, I soon found out I hadn't really studied it at all. So I spent the first sort of 3 months living down there, basically getting lost, leaving at least half an hour to an hour earlier than I would normally for any sort of anywhere I needed to go. And that was a great experience. But yeah, fast forward another few years, passed my university degree, did business and information technology, really started to enjoy it actually, especially towards the end. I was quite lucky. I managed to get a part-time job that worked around my uni course.
Right.
So I was lucky in the respect I could earn a little bit of money. I didn't really take out all the loans and the overdrafts and the credit cards and all that sort of thing. So I was lucky enough not to come out with thousands of pounds of debt. Like
it's a bit scary these days, isn't it?
Yeah, kind of puts you off a bit, doesn't it? It's crazy, really. They reckon the price of a degree, it can cost you anything between £40,000 and £50,000 these days, don't they? And most people.
A lot of debt to start your working life with, isn't it? Really.
It is. It's crazy, really. And most people say it's not worth the paper it's written on. Experience is worth more than that, isn't it? So.
Well, back in the day, a degree would get you a better job, but
yeah.
I don't think that's necessarily the case now.
No. So I got my degree, and I was lucky enough to work. I got a part-time job, just totally coincidental, for British Telecom, which was quite close to the university in Cardiff, and started off doing IT support. And this is the days of the dial-up internet.
Wow.
So you can imagine. I was
still hear that noise. When you think about it, like,
it haunts me. I wake up in the middle of the night some nights. Yeah, that tone. Oh. So basically, my job was to.
Loads of people watching this thinking, "What are they talking about?"
They've gone mad. Too much lockdown. Those two have gone mad. Yeah, they're not wrong. But yeah, it was an interesting job. It was business support, so it wasn't sort of residential. So you didn't have the absolute moaners screaming down the phone. There was the odd occasion where you'd get one excited person, but it was more sort of business, corporate. But these are the days where it was sort of coming to the end of the dial-up, and we literally just sort of transferred into broadband. Broadband was the massive sort of new invention, and I went through that transitional period with the IT and things, and that was interesting. So yeah, I managed to get a full-time job when I passed my degree with British Telecom. Just developed my career through them for about 5 years. Did lots of other things, web design, networking, and quite enjoyed it. I enjoyed that part of the job because it was interesting, but I was never a big fan of the mundane 9-to-5 office job. If I'm honest, didn't really appeal to me. Just boring. So especially coming from the countryside, I miss the countryside. They always say when you've lived in the countryside, when you're young, you can't wait to get away, but when you get older,
can't wait to get back. Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
Totally, 100%. Yeah, I couldn't wait to come back. Got to the age where I was just like, I want to come back. So I was considering training in another aspect of a career. So was looking around. I saw this advert, train to be a driving instructor. We've all seen them, haven't we?
Yeah.
But back then there was no Facebook, should we say. This was 2004, 2005, something like that. And it was back in the day where you used to have those careers magazines.
Yes.
Remember those? The job
absolutely.
centres, and used to post them through your letterbox, the free ones.
Yeah.
So it was one of those adverts. It was. I opened up the careers magazine. Oh, I can't. Got to find someone else to do. Getting bored of this. Oh, that looks interesting. Train to be a driving instructor. Be your own boss. £35,000 a year. I thought, right, I'm sold. That's what I'm going to do. So it was a company called the Instructor College.
Right. Okay.
I can see you smiling.
I'm
You know what I'm going to say. You know what I'm going to say, don't you? It's all right. I'll try to keep it clean. So yeah, got drawn into that. Went down. Thought, great. This looks great. And it was, the course was £3,000. So paid my money. And I remember the first time I met someone, they said, come down, have an interview. So this is before I paid. So this was sort of the sales pitch a little bit. Went down there and met someone at the reception. I don't even think they were like a trainer looking back on it. I think they were it was literally the receptionist. She grabbed the keys from behind the desk and sort of hurried me into a car. Right, show me what you can do. So we went out on this so-called driving assessment. Went out there. And literally from the time we started to the time we ended, it must have been half an hour. You're a great driver. You'd make a great driving instructor. Wow, that is amazing. You've got all the qualities. She had a clipboard, everything like that. It was great. Got back. Can you sign here? You know, we want you to be a driving instructor. So I thought, this is going really well. This is, can't wait to get started. So signed on the dotted line, paid my money, and it worked. So that you do your theory yourself, pretty much so what we do now. But can't remember. It was a CD-ROM. I remember it was a CD-ROM, one of the ones you put into your PC. There was no apps or anything like that those days. No. So yeah, we're talking CD-ROM and a workbook. So they gave you a workbook, and it was really thick, about that thick, and you had it must have been about 1,000 questions in there. So you literally work through the workbook with a pencil, ticking them all off, multiple choice, read the highway code, and passed the part one, did that quite quickly. Part two, again, I'd driven a fair bit, so thought I was an amazing driver, as we all do. And then met my trainer, went out with him, he tore me down a few shreds, and back to the drawing board. Bit more training with him. He was great, to be fair. Old guy, Dennis, never forget him. He was brilliant. Passed that first time, quite happy. Moved on then to the part three. Now, the way they worked the part three,
PST then, wasn't it?
That's it. Now, the way they did that, I was working full time at the time as well, so I was sort of still working for British Telecom and doing it around my full time job, on the basis that when I qualified, then I could either become a trainee or just do it full time. So the way they worked the part three was a 1 week intensive part three. So you booked it off work. When I look back on it, though, there was no sort of they didn't sort of keep you updated on how it's going to work. There was no sort of pre-course material. In fact, there was no course material, full stop, if I'm honest. The more I look back on it, the more it makes me laugh. But I just went along with it. You know, I thought this is how it works.
Well, you don't know that, do you? You know, it's not until you become a trainer and you look back and you think, oh, interesting. No,
that's it. Yeah, 100%. And turned up first day, and there was about 16 of us, and we were all in the same boat. I remember us standing outside the units, the workshops, just chatting, and no one really knew what was going on. And the way it worked was it was 40 hours intensive over 5 days. In the morning, you'd be in the classroom, and it would be literally pen and paper in front of you. Someone stood up with a whiteboard, just going through a few little things. MSPSL, at the time I didn't have a clue what that meant, but I knew I had to learn it. So it was MSPSL on the whiteboard. I'd write it down on my notepad. And the theory was, what we were doing, we were creating our lesson plans in the morning, you see, to go out in the afternoon and deliver these lesson plans. I thought, well, there you go. This is the norm. This is great. So that's what happened. In the afternoon, we'd go out in the car, and they'd pair you up 2 to 1 with a trainer. And you'd be in there. You hadn't really met the other person. Didn't really matter at the time. suppose everyone's in the same boat, and you go out and then you'd deliver your lesson in the afternoon. And I never forget it because you didn't really have a clue what you were doing, if I'm honest. I know with part 3 training, it's the ball's in your court, particularly now, you know, you can prepare for it, can't you? You can do anything online, etc. Back then it was literally chucked in the deep end. You know, there you go. Give me a lesson on moving off and stopping, or controls and all this sort of thing. There was, looking back on it, I don't even think we had color files or anything like that. We literally just had scribbled notes on a notepad in front of us, and it was awful. I remember I hated it, and I never forget it because the trainer I had, he was a bit of an idiot, if I'm honest. I gotta say it because he just wanted to take the mick out of you. Really, I remember it now. He'd say, right, go on then, give me this lesson. Controls, whatever it is, moving off and stopping. You'd be there making a total hash of it. Instead of helping you along, he'd be having a laugh about it. You know, then he'd look at the guy in the back, they'd have a laugh too, and you'd be thinking, there's something not right here.
Yeah, role play is a useful tool, but in the wrong hands.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so it was just a bit of a Mickey take, really, and that was the theme of it the whole week. And a couple of things that annoyed me looking back on it, which I didn't really think about at the time, but now I do. And it's one of the things that sort of inspired me a little bit to do what I do. You never had the same trainer, which was really annoying. So what they would do is sort of swap you around, and you wouldn't be buddied up with the same person. You wouldn't have the same trainer. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, and you never really got the chance to get a rapport or anything like that. Yeah. Back then, there was no mention of that even. There was coaching. What was that? You know, if you said coaching, they would look at you silly back then, wouldn't they? It was pretty much telling you must do this, do that. If you don't do this, you won't pass, basically. I was like, okay. So I just did what I was told. And yeah, it was an eventful week, shall we say.
Well, you got there in the end, though.
Got there in the end, yeah. And that was it. And we'd done our 40 hours then, and it was all signed off. And the next thing that they wanted us to do then was our part 3s. So, you know, I didn't think anything of it. Yeah, let's go for it. It's easy. You're past it now. You've had your 40 hours, off you go kind of thing. And I was like a rabbit in the headlights, I remember it. And it was the old style part 3 test. Yeah. And yeah, with the examiner playing role play. And we couldn't have it in Cardiff for some reason, because sometimes, I suppose, when I look back at it, it depends on waiting lists. So I was in Cardiff, but I went to Bridgend. Didn't really matter because, you know,
well, he's going to tell you where to tell him to go and stuff, isn't he? So it's
exactly. So I wasn't really worried about that. So got there, as you can imagine, very unprepared, and I couldn't have had a more strict examiner.
Oh no.
Yeah, I'll never forget his name, Ron Price. If he's watching, well, you know, Ron Price.
You still hate him?
No, he's retired now. I forgive him. But yeah, I'll never forget the experience. He tore me down a few shreds, to be polite, and it was awful. I didn't know what I was.
That test. It was just, if you won the argument, you seemed to pass the test. That seemed to be the thrust of it.
Yeah, no, you're right. It was like a game to them, wasn't it? Yeah. It was, you know, you could just see they loved messing you around, and it was totally unrealistic, and you were just chasing yourself. And I think they sort of had a plan to see how stressed they could get you, really, and they didn't really care about any of the attributes.
I wasn't a fan of that test. I'm a big fan of the new test. It's much more realistic, which is nice, and it's easier to train people, really, because they can get into it. You know, they're actually working with real live learners, which is super.
Yeah, exactly. And it's what they're going to be doing then, isn't it? When they start the job.
Do you think it was your experience, the bad experience you've had on with that type of training model that led you to want to be a trainer?
Most definitely. Yeah, definitely inspired me to be a trainer, because it was such a poor setup. And when I look, I mean, I didn't think of any of it. I didn't think of it being bad at the time, because I just thought,
that's right. Yeah.
This is it. I just thought, well, this is the norm. This is what you've got to do to be a driving instructor. So yeah, I failed that one really miserably. I remember it because it used to be out of 6, so you get 2 marks. The old style part 3 was phase 1, phase 2, with the examiner playing role play. So phase 1 was a beginner, so he was like literally a beginner, so you'd have to teach him controls or moving off and stopping or something like that.
Doing something for the first time.
That's it. That was the first half an hour. And then he'd suddenly change roles like this, as if by magic. And they'd be this experienced driver. And then you'd have to sort of show him the core competencies and try to control him. And that was the element of it, wasn't it? Absolutely. And yeah, so that was an experience. So I failed miserably. I got 2 2s. I think the minimum you were supposed to get was 2 4s, if I remember rightly. Yeah, that was it. So that was really poor. And I never forget what he was saying to me. He was saying, "You're no good. This is terrible." The examiner's feedback. I'll never forget it. Go back to the drawing board. All this sort of stuff. And it sort of totally demoralised me. And I walked away from it, head in hands, thinking, "Wow, this perhaps isn't for me." And there was no sort of support from the instructor college or anything. They just didn't really care.
Had your 40 hours, you're done. Yeah.
They'd had my money, etc. And they were kept widening the goalposts. So obviously I needed additional training and things. There wasn't an option of a trainee license at that point, if I remember rightly. So the way it worked was they'd give you some additional training and then you just take your next attempt. So I went away and thought about it and thought, well, I don't know if this is for me really, because I'm struggling with my full-time job, etc. So almost gave up. And then I ended up moving back to Brecon as well in between that, and found it a struggle to get down to Cardiff to train and do the additional hours. And you could only do your part 3 at an ADI test centre back then as well, if you remember. you couldn't do it at your local test centre. So it's just all a bit of a pain. So I was just about to give up, and then one of the local ADIs in the area said, "Oh, I know someone you could try to see if they could help you out." And it was a fairly local independent audit trainer, Neil Evans, his name was. I went to go and see him, and first thing he said to me, "Don't tell me you've come from the instructor college." Never forget it. I went, "How do you know?" I hadn't told him on the phone. It's just the way I can see your folder full of notes, pages. He was, "I can just tell." He goes, "Don't worry about telling me about your experience. I've seen about 10 people come from there in the last 2 months. So don't worry." He goes, "The first thing I want you to do is throw that lot in there." It was a big bin. So I just went, "Okay." And he presented me with these manuals, these color files. And I was just like amused. I was like, "Wow, where are these come from?" And he said, "Well, they've been around for a while. You just haven't been introduced to them, etc." And yeah, well, that changed a lot of things. And he picked me up, dusted me off. I had about 10 hours with him. Did my second attempt at my part 3, passed, and I was happy. So that turned it around for me. So that was great. And again, that's another thing that's inspired me to be an independent audit trainer. Because from that day on, I sort of thought, right, well, eventually, once I've learned my trade, this is what I want to do. I want to help people not make the same mistakes as what I made, And so started off as an independent ADI. Didn't go on a training license, just went for it, and I was quite lucky at the time because going back to around about 2007 when I started up, again it was a recession, so it was a similar sort of time to what we're in now. So business was absolutely thriving, and there wasn't as many instructors around then either. I remember particularly in my local area. If I remember rightly, it was probably about 5 in a 50-mile radius. It was massive demand for lessons, so I was really lucky in that respect. Grew the business quite quickly, and I worked for a number of years as an AD. I loved it, and that was that. And then thought, well, quite young, would like to progress.
Yeah.
Discovered that word CPD. whatever that stands for. Still don't know. Just like the sound of it. So kept in contact with the audit trainer, localish audit trainer, and he was big into CPD. He had connections with the DIA, so Driving Instructor Association, and started doing a few courses with him with that. And I remember doing my fleet badge through them. That was quite fun. Again, did a little bit of fleet work, but living in a rural area, there wasn't a massive demand. It was just another sort of qualification to have if I ever needed it. I just enjoyed doing the qualification, to be honest. I like investing in myself. I like learning, so that was a bonus. I remember doing the Diamond Advanced Driving Test with him. He was an examiner, so I did that, and that was fun. Then that inspired me then to got the bug then a little bit, so decided I was going to do my ROSPA Advanced test. Did that with a local trainer actually, and got gold, so I was well chuffed for myself for that. I was on the right road to being an advanced driver then, so I was happy. And then further down the line, decided I was going to, well, from the story, it inspired me. Eventually, I wanted to become a trainer myself. So I thought, well, what's this all about? And looked into that. And my independent trainer, he sort of trained me to be audit and passed it that way with him. And then started dipping in and out, training independent people to become independent ADIs locally. So did a little bit with that, but just wanted some structure, just wanted to take it a little bit further. And that was just at the time when the big change came and this word coaching, client-centered, the DVSA decided they were going to change it all up. And that was a very interesting time, wasn't it, Bob?
It was, yeah. I mean, I've always kind of worked that way. So it was manna from heaven to me. I've always tried to be more sort of person-centric. So I think it's been a change for the better, really, in reality. But there's, the DVSA are, well, they're looking for client-centered, where, client-centered and coaching are not necessarily, as we know, they're not necessarily the same thing. Exactly. Coaching is very, you're a blank sheet of paper, and you just reflect what that person is. But because we work in a safety critical environment, the DVSA still want us to be inputting perhaps a little bit more than a pure coach might. But that's the whole of that conversation. But it's a fascinating end of the thing, and it's for me, it's made the test much better, much more realistic, and more lifelike, more akin to what you're going to be doing at the pointy end when you're a qualified instructor. Definitely. So that then led you to have PDIs around you, I suppose.
Yeah. So I just started training PDIs, as I said, and didn't really know where I was going with it, if I'm honest. So I needed some direction. So just had a look to see what resources were available out there for me to sort of get some direction with it all. And discovered a company called Tri Coaching Partnership. And heard of this thing called the BTEC Level 4 in coaching for driver behavior. So I thought, right, I'll sign up to that and see how that goes. And then did that course and absolutely loved it, to be fair.
Well, I think it's walking up the coaching a lot of people, hasn't it? Their offerings have helped ADIs to see that there is this other world other than tell.
Definitely, yeah. It definitely changed the way I thought about things. And I learned so much from that, doing that. Really enjoyed it. And thought, right, this is time now to sort of implement this within what I do. And at the same time, I want to have some sort of structure to develop the driving school. Because when I first started training PDIs, I was always sort of worried about taking them on as franchisees, because I wanted to make sure I had the full package. I didn't want to become one of these, because from my own experience from when I trained in franchises, not that I got anything against them because they got their place, but from my experience, I wanted to make sure that I could offer them a good package.
Sure.
And so I went around it the long way, but it was worth it in the end. So I made sure I did. There was another course I did after the BTEC Level 4 with Tri Coaching. I did their trainer course.
All right, yeah.
And then got involved with their product ticket. So I thought, well, this is good because I've got a ready-made package now,
Yeah.
which I can deliver. This is just before online courses sort of got going, really. So it was more of a manual, a book, and do it that way, in-car sessions. There was online resources sort of coming into it at that point, talking sort of 2015, 16. But no, I mean, it developed from there, really. So sort of started implementing that, training PDIs. Whereas before, I didn't give them an option to come with me on a franchise. I sort of trained them and they'd gone independent.
Someone else could work there.
And that was fine because a lot of them are really successful ADIs now, and we still keep in touch. But I had something now that I could offer them, and I was more confident and thought, well, this is a package which I can sell, and I can get them and develop my driving score. Because in a way, you're missing a trick if you train PDIs. It's good to do that, let them off, and give them a choice. But I feel give them an option to have a business opportunity as well.
I think having more options to choose from is never a bad thing, unless you've got way too many. But it's so you're able to offer them the whole thing there, so they can look at the paper one day and think, oh, I wouldn't mind being a driving instructor, and then end up being a driving instructor with you at the end of it.
Yeah, I think it's good. It worked out well because you can give them a choice, as you say. I think having a choice is a good thing.
Yeah,
definitely. It sells you a bit more as well, doesn't it? Then.
Yeah.
And so that was good. I had the opportunity and started training my own PDIs. So I was able to advertise more. So I had a website designed and sort of advertised the course, sold the course. Just again, I was very careful because all through this, I was still teaching learners. So I still had a fairly full diary with learners because I hadn't taken on any PDIs or ADIs to work for me at that time. And it's kind of hard to juggle it, really, when you haven't got that opportunity to start with. That's another thing I sort of struggled with. I'm in an R in. Do I want to lose this? How much time do I devote to this? So I was kind of juggling it all around.
Unknown as well, isn't it? You think, well, what if it doesn't work?
This is it. I can get the work, but have I got the people to deliver the work? That's the thing. So all these sort of things go on in your mind, don't they? So eventually, it takes on average, as you start, I don't know, 6 to 8 months at the very earliest, perhaps 12 months is more realistic to get someone through, particularly it's a lot more than that now, we're waiting list, but it's very dependent on waiting list times and things, isn't it? So I was managing to get people through within sort of 12-month periods because a lot of people got other commitments as well, haven't they? Full-time jobs like I did.
Well, I think everybody thinks at the start, yeah, I'll get this cracked off in 3 months, but then life gets in the way.
That thing called life. I used to have one of those.
Yeah.
What's one of those, Bob? Yeah.
So then, I suppose that then leads to obviously the latest thing is the thing that's on the screen behind you, the PDI help and advice. So tell me about that.
I'm glad you asked.
That's your newest venture, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, I'm glad you asked. I've forgotten all about that. It's behind me. Oh, there it is. Thing. Yeah, great. So fast forwarding it a little bit from there, I became a trainer along with me training my own PDIs. I became a trainer with Tri Coaching. So actually got to the point where I was delivering workshops for them. The big plan was pre-lockdown. The big plan was sort of 6 months leading up to it. We'd planned a lot of workshops around the country, etc. So I got to the point where I'd done various courses to get ready to present, because if I'm honest, that was something that daunted me a little bit, the presenting side, standing up. We've all got those little fears. So I sort of spent a bit of time getting to that sort of stage, and they were just about to launch all our workshops. In fact, I think the workshops did get launched, and then that thing called lockdown came along and changed everything.
It did.
So there's a few panic stations, as you can imagine.
Absolutely.
Probably in the same boat yourself. And then this thing called Zoom came along, whatever that is.
I think it's changed the way we're going to train forever, I think, having the online stuff, because it's such a useful tool. It'll never replace, in-car training, but it can do an awful lot of it. You can really structure things, can't you? I've enjoyed the Zoom stuff. We've done loads of Zoom at LDC, loads. And it's been fascinating to see how it's going. So
Yeah.
So is that the launch of the PDI help and advice, I suppose, is the logical extension of that, I imagine.
Yeah, that's it. So we quickly, when I was, because as I said, the plan was for us to deliver these workshops on behalf of Tri Coaching, part 3 standards check workshops. So we had some quite interesting meetings initially. We're going to have to convert all this onto Zoom. You need to learn it in the space of 2 days. Now it was more like a couple of weeks, but it felt like 2 days. And then you've got 12 people which you're presenting it to, over Zoom, blah, blah, blah. So it was kind of an intense sort of way, right? I need to do this. Let's diverse. Let's get presenting online. And yeah, worked out well. Delivered a couple of courses for Tri Coaching, and then decided that I wanted to try my own things. Led me to the PDI Help and Advice Facebook group. And it was perfect timing for it, really, because this is the start of the first lockdown, which scarily enough is about a year ago now.
Yeah,
really.
it is, yeah.
Wow. I say time flies when you're having fun, isn't it?
Isn't it? It's been a hard year, that's for sure.
Yeah, just a bit. So it's one of the things that's kept me going through this, if I'm honest. So I'm so thankful for it. It's for my own sanity as well, more than anything. So that it's been a bonus for me. So I've always used Facebook and been members of various groups, particularly ADI/PDI groups.
Yeah.
When I was in those groups at the beginning of the lockdown, because there's so much hysteria going on, people didn't really know what was happening. There was a lot of negativity in these groups. You probably saw it yourself.
Absolutely.
And it was to the point where I was just flicking through the groups and thinking to myself, this is making me depressed. I've got to come out of these groups just for a bit, because it wasn't the best time for all of us, was it really? And that wasn't.
I mean, I drew myself back and concentrated really on the LDC family, and took care of our 500 instructors and on all of our students. Really, we sort of circled the wagons. And again, I came away from a lot of these groups just because of the negativity. I wanted to try and be as positive as I could for our guys and just get the best information I could. But, there was a lot of nonsense at the time. You're right.
I like that, nonsense. That's a good word. Yeah, we're being polite.
I did that up a lot, yeah.
No swearing on these Zooms.
Don't finger up your nose either. So people can find you on Facebook.
Yeah, so I decided to start the group, and it started off literally with me just experimenting with it, really. Spoke to a couple of people who I know who had groups and things, and just got a few tips, and started the group up with the idea of it just being, in fact, I invited the PDIs that I had already. So we already had our own little closed groups, like WhatsApp groups and things. Yeah. Thought, right, well, the idea is they're getting a bit distressed, a bit depressed. To take my mind off it, like yourself with LDC, I want to keep them occupied. I want to keep them in the loop. I've got a few ideas, some Zoom workshops, etc. So, and Facebook Live appealed to me because I'd seen it happening and a lot of people using it. I was interested in it. I thought, well, that's a nice tool. I want to get to use that. And it was just at a place where I could experiment with it, really. And it being a closed group, as you know yourself, it was a bit more closed cut. So it was more invite only. So I thought, well, this is a safe place. I wanted to create a safe place, an environment, a community where people could come and ask questions and not be scared of getting a head bitten off, like I was seeing in the other groups. For example, PDIs coming onto Facebook, it's quite daunting for them. And they're only asking questions because they don't know the answers to them. Could be anything. Can anyone advise training company? Can anyone advise franchise, independent? Just basic questions like that. I was looking at people asking these questions in these big groups, and they were just getting absolutely annihilated. And I was thinking, this is close to bullying.
Yeah,
this is horrible. So that was my inspiration for it. I wanted to create this safe place, and slowly got people, as the name got around a little bit more, people wanted to come in, and it grew gradually, sort of. So after the first couple of weeks, we were up to about 30 members, and they were quite proactive. To be fair, I was doing Facebook Lives most days because we were in lockdown. So I remember it was quite nice. The weather was quite warm. I'll never forget it. We were talking back sort of April last year.
Yeah.
We had a lovely month. And we thought this was great. It was a bit of a novelty when we first went into lockdown, wasn't it? We thought this is great. We can, in effect, getting paid to sit out in our
we
garden.
made most of it because it won't last long.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, it'll only be a few weeks. We'll be back to work now, etc. Yeah. 12 months later. But that was basically my day. So I had something to look forward to, something to do, planned my day around my lives, did them in my garden, and people started to love it. It was great. So fast forward 12 months, and the group's growing strong. We've got 260 members now. Right. We have regular Facebook Lives, Zoom workshops, and guests coming into the group who specialize in certain things to talk. So we have two Facebook Lives a week, and special guests that come in from the industry, which I introduce to the PDIs and talk about their specialist subjects, which is working out really well. And there've been some ups and downs. It hasn't all been plain sailing.
As always, yeah. As always.
You can imagine. So I've learned on my feet as I've gone along. I had this plan, we all go nice and smoothly, as we all think, don't we? Yeah. And then you hit a bit of a wall. It's like, oh, hang on. But I've always had people behind me who've got experience in it, and I've never been afraid to reach out and ask. I think that's really important. I've been really lucky to build up a network of people around me who know their own thing, and I don't claim.
It's the thing that makes it successful, and it's the reason that that Lou and Blaine, it's the reason that their group is so successful, because it's a safe environment, So they launch theirs for the same reason that you're launching yours. You see people getting savaged on these Facebook groups. You think, oh, hang on a minute, they've only asked a question. Can you not just give them the answer? So it's that I think the more we have these safe places, the better served our PDIs are. Where they can come in and they're not scared to ask a question. And they've got, like you said, other people coming in, I think is a great idea, because it's just a different perspective. And again, you're offering choices, and I think that's always a good thing, if you offer your customers choices. So long may it continue. It's nice to hear that it's going well. It's been fascinating to listen to your journey from a boy from the hills. a non-rugby loving Welshman. Who knew there was such a thing? Who knew?
It's a rarity, isn't it?
It is. That's good. So they can find you on Facebook, PDI Help and Advice. Is that what the group's called? Yeah,
we're PDI Help and Advice. Just pop it in the search bar. We're just PDIs now. We used to have one of the not saying mistakes, but one thing I learned is have a goal and just stick with it, because I kind of experimented with a couple of things. I was letting ADIs in at one point, but then I sort of thought, well, my goal was for PDIs, and I know you're laughing because I know you know exactly what
absolutely
what experiences I've had. It's been like a headache after a headache on some days. It's just funny though. You've got to laugh about it. It's like a playground, isn't it? Sometimes
it's my standard sort of joke, if you like, about what's the difference between a driving instructor and a battery? Battery's got a positive side.
I like that one.
I don't know what it is, because you meet these guys in test centers and they seem so nice. You meet them in Facebook and you think, what is wrong with you? Why are you behaving this way? What is the matter with you? It's just.
Yeah.
We talk often, don't we, about the glass being half full or half empty. For an awful lot of ADIs online, they just kick the glass over. It's just what. Well, anyway, let's not focus on the negativity. Yeah. I'm delighted for you that it's working and that you're finding the way that it needs to be, the right vibe for the group. So you all know where it is now. Mm-hmm. I've got to go because I've got to take the cat to the vet now. But thanks, Ed. I know you've got something planned as well, haven't you? Your missus got plans for you?
Apparently so. We're going on a dinner date, which sounds interesting. I've got dressed up and everything. Look, well, from the waist upwards anyway. Don't know what I'm wearing underneath.
Pajama bottoms on.
That's what I like about these Zoom calls.
I'm dressed from this point on.
Oh, it's great.
Thanks ever so much, Richard. Thanks ever so much for giving us your time.
No problem at all, Bob. thanks for inviting me. I really appreciate it. Good luck with your group, with the surgery and everything, and I'll be watching your lives.
I'll speak to you soon. Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.